Welcome back to Fiercely Unfiltered. I'm your host, Kelly Renee. And with November 11th coming up, which is Veterans Day, I wanted to go into a little bit of the history of where Veterans Day came from. Veterans Day started as Armistice Day. And armistice is just a fancy word for an agreement to stop fighting. And it was at 11 o'clock on the 11th day of the 11th month of the year in 1918 that agreement was signed. November 11th, 1918 is the day that the weapons were put down and the fighting stopped. And that day was to honor all the soldiers that fought in World War I. But then later on in 1954, after there was World War II and the Korean War, Congress decided that it wasn't fair just to be celebrating the soldiers that fought in World War I, and they wanted to make it to celebrate all soldiers. So in 1954, President Eisenhower signed a bill that changed Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And when it turned to Veterans Day, it now celebrates everyone who served, past and present, peacetime and wartime. And that's how Veterans Day came about. I want to talk a little bit of what people can do to support and celebrate veterans. I understand what comes along with that title, and I have pride and honor that I share that title with so many people. But to look at the actual numbers of veterans, there's about 16 million veterans in the world today, which makes up about 6% of the adult population. And out of that, about 11% are females. And females are actually the fastest growing group in veterans. It's said that in 2040, 1 out of 5 veterans will be females. So let's get into how you can support veterans in everyday life. Because I know a lot of people thank veterans for their service. Being thankful is great, but when it's followed by action, that's even better. So let me tell you something you can do to support a veterans today, next week on Veterans Day, every day of the year. Find a local business, online business, local restaurant, a local business, something that's veteran owned. Because 5% of all businesses in the United States are owned by veterans. And those veteran-owned businesses generate about $1 trillion to the economy. That's awesome. Veterans are leaders, problem solvers, team players. So if you own a business and you're looking to hire a veteran. That is something you can do to support veterans and help them move on in civilian life, because a lot of people think serving is probably the hardest thing. But honestly, I think that transitioning back to civilian life might be harder than serving, because when you're serving, you're with your fellow soldiers. You all have the same mission. You're working together. You have purpose. You have focus. You have camaraderie. And then when you get out, it's just you trying to figure out what's next while you're trying to get used to civilian life, which is so much different than military life. I spent 8 years in the military, and I always said, people are like, why didn't you just do 20? And it's like 12 years is a lot longer. But after getting out and living civilian life, if I had to redo that, I might have stayed in for 20 years, because 12 years time passes anyways. I would have still been young when I got out and been able to do something else. So if you're in the military and you're wondering, should I stay for 20 years? Should I get out at 8? I say stay for 20. You're already in. It's a great place to be. It's completely different than civilian life. When you get out, it's going to be a whole new set of problems in different ways. So, but there's something else I wanted to bring up. I actually just watched a show called Boots on Netflix. I guess it's inspired by a memoir of a Marine who went through basic training in the 1990s. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the book was The Pink Marine. And that's the first movie I've seen that actually made me feel like I was back in basic. It was all males in the parts they were showing about basic training, but this is the most realistic I've seen. So if you're thinking about joining the military, if you have a sibling, a friend who's someone who did join the military, or you have a kid who's about to go in the military, watch this movie, Boots, on Netflix. There's 8 episodes. It'll really give you a picture into the stuff we went through. I know I've talked about the gas chamber and all this stuff on my podcast and other episodes. And every one of the things that I remember was in this movie. And it was almost the same exact way, how you have to take showers, how your bunks were with all the people, how sometimes you just don't know if you're going to make it. It shows the struggles, the pride. It shows everything. So it was a really good, I binge watched it in one day. But that's something you guys can watch to get a little bit insight on veterans and what they have to go through. Because when we get back, people need grace. They need patience to understand what, I don't think anyone's going to understand, not even me. I didn't go to war. The emotional tolls, like some scars are visual, some are fought in your head quietly, and both deserve the respect. So it takes a lot to transition back to civilian life. And I know a lot of people who the VA failed them and didn't help them in the way they needed. But the VA is trying and they're doing better. And right now, all the veterans, there's about 35% of veterans who are actually signed up for VA healthcare. But about 95% of all veterans do have some kind of healthcare right now. So that's great. The vets are being taken care of medically. But I know I have some friends that were prescribed medicine when they needed more of mental health counseling, and they have struggled more than they needed to because they didn't have the proper help. But I know I'm getting help now and it's improving. I think it's a lot better. There's one thing, I think today is the 23rd or 24th day of the government shutdown. And I know it doesn't affect everybody, but for veterans, it does affect us. Like right now, I'm being affected. I shared that I signed up for VRE, vocational readiness and employment, where I could go back to school to get retrained, to get a job, to support myself now that my circumstances has changed. And I went through the process. I had my next appointment October 22nd. But as soon as the shutdown got announced, I got an email saying that your appointment's canceled. Once the government's reopened, we'll reschedule. But that's a lot of appointments that were canceled. So I don't know if I'm going to get rescheduled in front of other people. But the school I wanted to started January 5th. With my appointment being October, it would have been perfect timing. But now I don't know if that's going to happen. So it's going to push me back to at least May 5th. And that's if it opens up and I get everything taken care of before that. I'm hoping it does. So with stuff happening with the government, a lot of veterans are being affected with the advancements in their life or the goals they're trying to make. They're not going to be hit on time because of this. So there again, a little more patience. Also, when I talk about how people can help, I think another thing you guys can do is take your kids to veterans parades on Veterans Day and show your kids that veterans deserve respect. And every veteran's story is different, but they all started the same way. We all signed up to be a part of something bigger than us, to fight for freedom, because freedom isn't free. It's earned daily by real people who sacrifice everything to go fight for everybody. And when I joined the military, I was 19, and you're signing up for something you have no clue what's in store. The pay is not great, especially when you're starting out, and you're controlled daily. You have no free will, I guess, kind of, when you're in basic and training. So it's a big commitment. It is something that should be celebrated, and it is something that should have a day. So November 11th is Veterans Day. And let's make sure people understand the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Memorial Day is a day to celebrate those soldiers that actually paid the ultimate price. They didn't come home. They sacrificed their life for our freedom. And that's what Memorial Day is about. And that's the most expensive holiday in the United States because it was paid with people's husbands, wives, fathers with lives that we can never give back. And Veterans Day is a day that celebrates all soldiers, present, past, wartime, peacetime, anybody who signed up to put their life on the line for something bigger than them because they felt freedom is important. And if someone doesn't fight for it, we won't have it. It's not something that's passed down from generation to generation. It's something that's fought for with patience and time and sacrifice and heartache and blood. And it's something that earns days to celebrate these people. So I wanted to let everyone know what Veterans Day is really about. How to support your troops on a daily basis, because they need support more than just this one day. They need support every day. So be kind, reach out to a veteran you know, ask them if they're okay. Let them share their stories with you about the time in the military. I know sometimes I bring up my time in the military and people are like, well, was that 30 years ago? Yeah, maybe it was. But that's when you serve, when you're 19. And I do have stories from 30 years ago. And I'm not living in the past. I'm proud to be a female veteran. I'm proud of what I did for our country. I'm going to talk about it as much as people let me. So happy Veterans Day to everyone who's served. And go find a local business, veteran owned, buy something from them today, from them next week. Every time you need something, 5% of all businesses are veterans owned. Go find one. Do your part. Support a troop. Support a veterans. Until next time.